So this week I thought I'd try a bit of a lighter topic and talk about a game coming out that I'm excited about. If you've been paying attention to my Twitter at all, you'll have no doubt seen me post about Temtem. So, what is Temtem? Well, on a surface level, it looks to be pretty much just a Pokemon clone, but with some online features. But the reason I'm so excited about it is because I am a Pokemon fan. Based on first impressions, Temtem sounds like the Pokemon MMO that I've always wanted. But let's take a closer look at the Kickstarter and see what information we can glean. Is Temtem going to be that highly desired Pokemon MMO, and is it worth your money to back the Kickstarter? Well, there is a lot of information about Temtem between wikis and Reddit. What I'll mainly be paying attention to is the Kickstarter because we can know for sure that anything on there is completely true. Catch new Temtem on Omnisia's floating islands, battle other tamers on the sandy beaches of Denez, or trade with friends in Tukma's ash-covered fields. Defeat the ever-annoying Clan Belsodo and in its plot to rule over the archipelago. Beat all 8 dojo leaders and become the ultimate Temtem tamer. So the basic premise sounds almost exactly like Pokemon, and we can see from the GIF that it looks almost exactly like Pokemon. One of the major concerns I've heard from people is that these developers will get sued by Nintendo or Game Freak or someone. The developers have actually addressed this issue of their game looking too similar to Pokemon, and have stated that they want to give it more of its own identity. I think it's safe to assume that the Kickstarter cinematics and material are more to show a proof of concept to get people to see what the game might be like, and shouldn't be taken as what everything will look like exactly upon release. As far as the suing thing goes, I don't really think it's something that we need to worry about. Nintendo doesn't own the concept of collectible battle monsters. Remember that Digimon has been running as a competitor of sorts for almost as long as Pokemon has. Besides that, since Nintendo only releases on console and Temtem will be a PC release, I don't think that they would even see it as a direct competitor. Anyway, back to the promotional material. We can see many other players running around, each accompanied by a Temtem. So it's safe to assume from this that there is a persistent online world with a server that you connect to, just like any other MMO. We know that we can see other players and we can battle and trade with them, so I guess my main question at this point is, what else can we do? Will there be multiplayer groups? How will that work in battles? Will there be guilds? Is there an in-game economy other than trading Temtem? Can players buy and sell items from each other? Do you wager in-game currency on battles with other players? How hard is it to challenge other players to a battle? Is it something you can turn off so other players can't bother you while you're running around? Most of my questions have to do with the interactability that players have with each other. How does being an MMO affect the basic gameplay of a game like Pokemon, which has always been a primarily single-player game? And we do get some answers later in the Kickstarter. In one of the facts on a later update, the developers talk about their vision for the game, and how, while they call it a massive multiplayer online game, their goal isn't to make it something like World of Warcraft. The core idea behind Temtem is to build a classic adventure game with a focus on the story campaign, but with the online elements added around it, seeing other people online, interacting with them, battle, trade, or just talk and share experiences. So I think it's safer to think of Temtem as more of an MMO light, something that you can primarily play solo, but with other people running around that you can interact and group up with. I think it's safe to assume that the vision for this game isn't to have things like huge group raids or dungeons. Though there will be co-op. Temtem battles are the form of competition between the Tamers in the airborne archipelago. Tamers can have up to 6 Temtem in their squad, but only 2 at a time will be able to battle. And Temtem battles are turn-based, so Tamers will take turns commanding their Temtem what to do in battle until all Temtem are exhausted and one of the Tamers emerges as the winner. Battles are focused on 2v2, although there will be some 2v1 battles against untamed Temtem, or 1v1 with other players, and we are committed to keeping random factors out of battle. We've seen the frustration that random elements cause, especially in the competitive scene, so we've decided to remove them and have made the combat 100% skill and strategy based. Now there's a lot to dissect here. First of all, the focus on 2v2 battles makes a huge difference in the way the game is played. 2v2 battles open the doors for a ton of new possibilities with team compositions and move synergies. It means that from the ground up the game will be designed with 2v2 battles in mind, so we'll probably see a lot of moves that have some kind of an effect on your own Temtem or both the enemy ones. This also answers the main question about how co-op is going to work. Temtem's campaign will be fully co-op compatible. You'll be able to join forces with a friend at any time and work together toward your next goal. Catch new Temtem, complete a route, or face off against a Temtem leader, all while fighting alongside your friend in dual battles. This is really cool, and it makes a lot of sense why the battles in this game are primarily 2v2. It looks like you'll be able to party with at least one other person, each using one Temtem in these 2v2 battles. Since the game is designed for 2v2 battles, two-player parties makes sense, but I don't know if there can really be more than two people in a party. It would mean that there would have to be 3v3 battles, and the game is made from the ground up to be 2v2, and I'm not sure if that would really work. It would mean the devs would have to put a lot of time and money into designing moves for use in 3v3 battles or 4v4. Then you have to think, would you even want 3 or 4 people on your team? Because since it's a turn-based game, it means you're going to be waiting for 3 other people instead of just 1. I don't really see it happening, so I'm actually fine with just 2v2. But back to the battle system, the statement about keeping random elements out of battles is huge. It likely means that all moves will have 100% accuracy, and that means that most moves can't just be higher-powered versions of other moves, but with lower accuracy. It means that moves are going to be more diverse because it forces lower-powered moves to have some kind of additional benefit so they can compete with higher-powered moves. This combined with what I was talking about with 2v2 synergies has me really excited to see what kind of new ideas that the developers of Temtem have. No random factors also means we won't have random status conditions, things like paralyze where sometimes you can't attack, or sleep where you randomly wake up. If there are status conditions, they're going to have to be much more static, things like poison or burn, or they'll have to get more creative with what status conditions actually do. Finally, we can analyze the implications of all of this. What has me the most excited about Temtem is the fact that the developers seem very aware of some of the problems with competitive Pokemon and are making major differences with their battle system to address it. Pokemon has never been a very balanced game competitively. There are a myriad of self-imposed rules that people have to follow to even get a semblance of competitive balance. But if the Temtem devs understand this and dedicate themselves to creating a balanced game from the ground up, it's going to be a much more interesting and fun experience. And because Temtem is new, the developers don't have to worry too much about the way the fans will react to any changes. That's always been a problem with Pokemon. The game is inundated with poor or outdated design decisions that only exist out of tradition, but Temtem can address those and fix them. And you can see an example of what I'm talking about in the way that competitive battles will be handled. Temtem battles are the most important aspect of every tamer's job. Competitive battles take it up a notch and let you battle other tamers with similar skill levels. Begin to plan your strategy even before the battle with pick and ban phases and escalate the ranked ladders. Start by choosing 10 Temtem, and the pick and ban phase will begin. Take turns with your rival to pick your Temtem and ban theirs. When all the decisions are made and the turns are ended, you will end with a squad of 4 Temtem and the battle will begin. Once again, this shows the focus on competitive battling that the game will have. Just having a server ranking system is a really cool idea. It gives people something to work toward at in-game. Now, I have seen some confusion about the idea of a pick and ban phase. I can see why this would be kind of weird or concerning if you've never played really competitive games with this kind of system before. What it does is basically add another layer of strategy. It forces you to improvise and basically build a team on the spot in direct response to the team that your opponent is building. At the same time, it allows you to deny your opponent from using characters that are especially problematic for the team you're trying to build. Have you ever been playing a game before and you've come across an opponent that is basically impossible for you to beat? And it's not because they're better than you exactly, it's because their specific class or team or cards specifically counter yours. This is what a pick and ban phase really alleviates. It also prevents opponents from forming really dumb, gimmicky teams. I'm sure everyone here has seen the Magikarp sweeper video where through a combination of gimmicks a player makes their Magikarp one-shot the entire enemy team. So to me, this is actually a good thing. It shows that the developers are willing to innovate and stray away from the normal Pokemon formula in order to make the game better and work on a massive multiplayer competitive level. And if you really don't like this, there's still the option to do unranked friendly battles without any sort of pick or ban phase. So I've talked endlessly about the battle system and competitive modes, but let's move on to what most people probably actually care about, the Temtem themselves. Based on the description given, Temtem seem to fulfill the same role as Pokemon do in people's everyday lives, essentially being pets, helpers, or fighting companion. Now, as to the designs of the few Temtem we've seen, they're alright. I haven't really seen any that stuck out to me as especially interesting, but I also haven't seen any that were completely offensive, like a sentient bag of garbage or something. I've actually heard from the developers myself that the designs for Temtem are going to be all based on animals, specifically so they can avoid those really terrible designs. Judging by the Kickstarter, the game will be pretty focused on a single-player or co-op story mode. We get a little more information about the islands and the world it all takes place in. It seems like each island is a different biome with drastically different aesthetics, and it all sounds pretty cool. I also like this idea of a floating archipelago, because it seems like it would be pretty easy in the future for them to simply add more islands. We also get some information about the antagonists of the game, who seem to be very similar to a sort of Team Rocket type thing. All in all, I can't say I'm too excited about the story exactly. Usually the stories in Pokemon games are kind of bland and all kind of the same. This seems very similar. The fact that it's an MMO, which have notoriously terrible stories to begin with, means I don't really have my hopes up, but maybe the developers will surprise me. Really though, with these kinds of games, it's about the gameplay and collection. That's what really matters, and that all seems really solid. The battling looks just as intricate with Pokemon, complete with a very similar type of weakness and resistance chart. There are a few little other things that I didn't quite expect to see, but that are also pretty cool. Lots of player customizability for one. We can see it here, and I've heard from the developers that the character customizability and cosmetic items will be pretty big, so I'm excited about that. There will be Lumas, very rare, different colored, and exceptionally sparkly Temtems, very similar to shiny Pokemon. The Kickstarter talks about Temtem breeding, which seems to function basically the same way as it does in Pokemon. We also know from the breeding section that there will be an added layer of depth of getting certain moves or hidden stats onto Temtem through breeding. Finally, there will be player housing. You know, one of my favorite games, at least when I was younger, was Animal Crossing. Any game that lets me decorate my house as kind of a side minigame kind of thing is just so appealing to me. The Kickstarter also talks about instances of groups of houses called neighborhoods, so it'll be cool to actually see other players' houses as physical places in the game world. Now at this point, Temtem is completely funded, so the game will happen, and currently they're looking at stretch goals. I can't be entirely sure what all of these things mean, but I do know from being in the Temtem Discord server that the Nuzlocke Mode is essentially like a hardcore version of the game that will take place on a separate server from the main game and its players. Similar to the self-imposed playstyle some people use with Pokemon, in Nuzlocke Mode, the amount of Temtem you can catch is limited, and when a Temtem faints in battle, it dies, and you can't use it anymore. I've never personally been interested in modes like these, but judging by the Discord reactions when the goal was met, a lot of people are. The arcade mode we don't really know much about. I assume it's going to be kind of like the Game Corner in the older Pokemon games, but more of a focus on mini-games and not just a slot machine. And the new mythical Pokemon and mounts are both pretty self-explanatory. The big one that people are excited about is at $250,000, the game will have a Switch port, though it's unclear right now if it's going to be cross-platform. Now when it comes to backing the game, there will be a lot of options. $20 will basically just get you a copy of the game, $30 will get you into the alpha, which is something that I really like the idea of because it means I can keep track of the game as it develops, and then we have backer rewards going all the way up to $6,000 where you can make your own Temtem to put into the game. There are still a few weeks left to fund the Temtem Kickstarter if the game looks interesting to you. I know I'll be playing in the alpha, and I'll be putting up more content once in a while about the state of the game and answering any questions and concerns the best I can. And if they let me, I'll probably do a few alpha streams. The alpha version opens up a little later this year, and the full release of the game will be in mid-2020. It seems like such a long way away, but what's really cool is that the development team has been active with its backers, letting backers do things like pick which Temtem add to the game from a list of designs and even naming some of the Temtem. I'm really looking forward to the game, and hopefully I've gotten you excited about it too. Anyway, I'm Kothorix, and you have a wonderful day. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Tell me what you think in the comments. Do you like this kind of content? Would you like to see more gaming related stuff from me? And if you do, I do stream gameplay of various games every weeknight from 9 PM to 1 AM Eastern on Twitch. I also want to thank all my Patreon supporters and Twitch subscribers, and if you want to support me on either platform, there are links in the description.